and it's time for an episode of The Talk that will be unlike any other we've had before. We haven't been together at the studio since the week of March 10th, and as you may know, during our break, Sharon decided to leave The Talk. We need to process the events of that day and what happened since so we can get to the healing. Over the next hour, we will honestly discuss what occurred and explore some of our feelings. And we'll also show you how anyone can become more comfortable discussing important issues and having difficult conversations. And by the end of the hour, we want everyone to feel empowered and ready to move forward. So, let's start talking.
Today's video will be like no other video before. Analyzing and piece by piece going over an entire episode that I could manage to watch of The Talk of their first day back after the Sharon incident. As I overly dramatize and overly hype up this intro as if it's going to be so dramatically different than any other intro and video that I've ever done before. So let's get to it. Alright, so that obvious mockery out of the way. This is just going to be a video of me, viewing particular moments of, what I was able to even watch. Mind you, this is not the entire episode because it was so cringy, so scripted, so fake, so virtue signally, just egregious in damn near every way possible that I couldn't even make it more than like 20 minutes into it. It was obvious, pre-planned, and a biased agenda, and just overall just shitty to watch and just so cringeworthy because it was so overly politically correct, overly PC, and the acting and the fakeness and the bullshit was just so, I couldn't make it through. Like, I tried to tough it out for as long as I could, but literally I could not make it through. But nonetheless, for the bits that I did get through, for the first, I think 20 or something minutes, here we go.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on such an important day here at The Talk. We have a special hour devoted to one of the most difficult conversations anyone can have, the talk about race. There's been a reckoning.
Man, they're acting like this show is like, I don't know, WrestleMania or some sort of presidential address for some big scheme or something like that. They're acting like this is such a big fucking deal. Like, they're overhyping it to be like literally the most important thing to have and discuss. It's so melodramatic. Just the intro, with Sheryl and how she was talking about it, and then how they're literally saying how they're devoting 1 hour to talking about that situation that happened with Sheryl and Sharon and the particular topic. It's so, like, stop with the over dramatizing, stop with the over sensationalizing. It's not the biggest deal in the entire universe. Like, I don't know, they think this show is way bigger than what it is, and they think, so they're overdoing it, overselling just how big of a deal this show is, to the point where they're acting like, oh, we gotta address this like it's some like major multimedia event that, everybody be watching, like it's WrestleMania, presidential address, like it's on the same level of importance that those two things are or something. It's like, just stop.
In this country since George Floyd's death, so we must have this conversation, no matter how uncomfortable. We wanted to do the necessary preparation for today and for the future, so over the past few weeks, individually and as a group, we've been in our own healing sessions led by the team at Jones, who are experts in diversity and equity. And today, we've invited another expert who's been working with us behind the scenes, Dr. Donald Grant, who is the Executive Director at Mindful Training Solutions and is a consultant on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice for major companies.
Oh dear God. Oh dear God. Here we go with the mamsy-pamsy bullshit and politically correct horseshit. God save us all. If there is one. Probably isn't, but if there is one, save us all. Already with the virtue signaling and the politically correct crap, and she's clearly reading from a teleprompter. It's all scripted, it's fake, it's sensationalized horseshit. Oh my God. I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this goddamn video because I'm gonna have to watch this. This is the second time I'm gonna have to, actually technically, yeah, third time I'm gonna have to watch this. Because I gotta go piece by piece. I watched it in full to record it. Now I'm watching it in full to analyze it. And then I watched it a little bit, you know, through articles and such, so I don't know. I sure hope I can make it through this shit. Jesus Christ.
And he will be helping us provide a model for having these challenging discussions. Then later in the show, we'll focus on how people can work towards healing with trauma therapist Dr. Anita Phillips. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that I was not here for that March 10th conversation, but I felt it as deeply as you all did. So as we go over the events of that day, I will do less talking, but a lot of listening and supporting. So let's get started with our friend, Dr. Grant. Dr. Grant, welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Dr. Grant.
Such a pleasure to be here with you all in this really important moment. I do a lot of work with organizations, and people always ask, how do we create safe spaces?
Safe spaces. Safe spaces. Oh yeah, we're definitely in the liberal Democrat area now, politically speaking. The mamsy-pamsy of it all. The safe space. Safe spaces. Oh my God, I need a safe space. Leave it to this show. Leave it to this show. To bring some emasculated, feminized male, beta male type of character. And of course, he has to be a black man, no less. Of course. I see what you're up to, CBS. You have to use a black guy. Yeah, it's pretty obvious what's going on here with that.
What I'm hoping for today is that we're able to work with your viewers to create a brave space where people are able to feel vulnerable and really take an opportunity to unlearn. And so let's dig in. Let's do it.
Okay.
So let's start, Sheryl. Let's start with you. How are you feeling today?
I'm nervous, but I'm ready. I feel a safe space. I'm ready.
Yeah. On March 10th, the world witnessed a very emotionally charged conversation between you and Sharon. I saw a composed, clear, confident woman, but what we didn't see what was going on inside. Can you share a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
Like, again, they're scaling this, like, the importance of the show and of particularly of this episode well beyond what it's really worth in regard to its importance and value, even at that. As if this show will somehow affect the racism or make some huge cultural change just by having this episode. Like, it's that big of a deal that they're gonna change all them racist people to not be racist just because they had a dedicated hour to sensitivity training with this guy. Like, seriously, you guys are not that important. You're not that influential. Just stop, you attention whores. God.
Well, I didn't want to escalate things with Sharon because I thought I was having a conversation with a friend but also I knew I had to be an example for others to follow because I didn't want to be perceived as the angry black woman, and that really scared me. I didn't want to be that, and I wanted to remain calm and remain focused. And it's difficult to go back to that day because I just feel the trauma. I feel fearful, you know, a little apprehensive.
Yeah, right to the race card and playing the victim all in one while throwing Sharon right under the bus. And the kicker of it all is Sharon is so much so trying to play the victim that she's trying to actually imply and outright tell us, the viewers, that she was traumatized by a simple, small, little exchange of words between two friends. Traumatized, shell-shocked, PTSD from a fucking conversation. Someone pull a gun on you? There's a good reason to get a little bit of traumatized. You get into a car crash? There's a good reason to be traumatized if you're gonna go for a car ride. You're gonna be a little, you know, fucked up from that. Have an actual combat in war, you know, shooting guns and being shot at? Oh yeah, you're gonna have PTSD. Go through severe traumatic events in your life, such as being abused as a child or otherwise? Oh, you bet you're probably gonna have PTSD. For Sheryl to claim that she has PTSD and or in any sort of way was traumatized by a simple, small little exchange between her and Sharon is an absolute disgrace to everyone who has true and real PTSD. To everyone who truly has PTSD, that was incredibly disrespectful to them and minimalizes what they go through and what they have to deal with. To trivialize it so much, it makes PTSD sound so you know, it makes PTSD sound damn near insignificant because apparently you can get PTSD now from a fucking conversation that lasted only, I don't know, a little 5 whatever minutes it was, I don't know, and then behind the scenes and whatever, I don't know. So, but it was a very short exchange of words nonetheless, and somehow you can be traumatized or get PTSD from that. Ha 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 ha, my ass. If that was the case, then everybody should be having PTSD, myself included, and goddamn you guys too, because you know I'm pretty traumatizing with how I talk. I'm pretty traumatizing with the verbiage that I use, man. Oh yeah, y'all should be traumatized too. Oh my god, seriously. So anyone that has true PTSD, I am sorry that she is trivializing it so much and making it seem like it's just a condition and just making a joke out of a very serious mental health condition. It is not to be taken lightly, and fucking bullshit artists like Sheryl trying to make herself into a victim and using mental illness type, you know, situations or conditions rather to further her agenda is just absolutely unacceptable and should not be the path to go down. There are so many different ways she could have, you know, went along with her little agenda, but she went down the wrong path, one of the worst paths she could have gone down to try to make it seem more than what it really is. So to those who do have PTSD, I am sorry that you had to, you know, fortunately hear that bullshit come out of Sheryl's mouth. Yeah, and for those that don't know, PTSD is not something that you can simply get from having a conversation, much less from a friend. PTSD is a very real and a very serious condition, and many people deal with this throughout their entire lives. It's very chronic, and it's not something to take lightly. So anyways, don't want to get too far off topic, so let's continue on.
It makes sense, as so many black women experience that and have those experiences. Now, Elaine.
Of course, the emasculinated, demasculinated, feminine, beta male therapist guy, of course he's going to agree with Sheryl. CBS is paying this guy pretty good money to be on the show, with their preset agenda and so on and so forth. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that he's got to basically agree with anything and everything these females say, no matter how wrong they are. So of course he's going to agree with Sheryl and say, ooh, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense at all, dude. You're literally losing your credibility by being on the show and agreeing with everything these females are saying. You're losing credibility, literally. And on top of this whole afraid to be labeled as a angry black woman thing, that was racist. To assume that us white people or other people that aren't black would instantly assume that, or otherwise label Sheryl or any other African American black female as being this angry black woman of stereotype is outright racist. Something to really think about, huh? It's the ultimate irony of these virtue signalers, and their little agenda, not even realizing their hypocrisy, contradictory, and how they, go about things. Just the simple fact that she's trying to state, not outright, but she's saying in one way or the other that if, trying to play the victim while doing this, of course, but she's saying that if she was to have spoken what she really wanted to say or whatever, and this is why she was crying, blah, 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 that she would have been labeled by us white people or other people who aren't black as being the angry black woman stereotype, right? Well, that inherently is racist. You're assuming that us people, probably white people in particular, would label Sheryl as the angry black woman stereotype. Racist, contradictory, hypocritical. You're saying that Sharon is racist. You're saying that we're racist, but at the same time, Sheryl is the one being racist by making that statement. And the guy who's losing his credibility by agreeing with it is likewise enabling it. I mean, come on. Oh my God. Let's go on.
As I rewatched it several times in preparation today, I noticed you really jumping in, dropping information about allyship and anti-racism and stereotypes. And I think some of that got lost inside of the sound bites. Can you share a little bit more about what that was like for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge you, Sheryl, on air for how you handled that situation. And I think it's important for people to really know how much strength and willpower it takes to maintain that kind of composure in that situation. And I think, for me, I was just...
Yup. Mm-hmm. The ass kissing and the dramatics and the theatrics and the melodrama and the ass kissing all going on at once there. Elaine, of course, having the whole camaraderie thing going on and having to, back up Sheryl or whatever. And then there's, of course, Sheryl over there being all, oh, thank you, I'm about to cry. Putting on the whole theater act over there, man. Jesus, fuck, that was cringeworthy. It was so obvious that the putting on a show, an act, and then there was Elaine who was virtue signaling her ass off in such a fake and blatantly obvious way that I was just like, oh my God. Making again Sheryl sound like the gift, God's personal gift to humanity. Sheryl, type bullshit, and how she handled it so well. I was like, get over yourselves, you feministic, gynocentric echo chamber. Anyways, let's go on.
Really entering that conversation with a hope of finding common ground. And I didn't feel that I was heard, which saddened me, because part of the reason I joined this show with all these diverse, beautiful, intelligent women is I thought that we had an opportunity here, and I think we do have an opportunity here, to have conversations that help show people how we can bridge these divides in our country. And
Oh God, look at Elaine trying to pump herself up and virtue signal her ass all the way up as if she's like this holier than thou superior person. While also, of course, throwing Sheryl under the bus with, or Sharon under the bus as well. Jesus fuck, dude. And of course, you know, since they are in a feministic echo chamber, you know, they're basically fingering themselves, and each other at that. You know, you ever heard the term circle jerk? You know, basically a bunch of guys in a circle jerking each other. Well, this show is basically that, but the female version, so they're all fingering each other. You know, a finger circle going on right now. And particularly between Elaine and Sheryl, you know, they're just fingering each other type bullshit right now. It's just such a fucking mamsy-pamsy, oversensitive, emotionally sensationalized horseshit going on. And again, they're acting like this show in particular is going to make the big difference in society and culture and affect everyone all around the world, all because they're making a discussion topic on this daytime CBS show. They're over believing, or whatever you want to call it, just how important this show really is. They think of this show way more than what it truly is. This is the type of show that you have in the background while doing homework or playing a video game, or being more times than none. The reason that I even know this show is because this is the type of show that they play when you're in a waiting lobby. Dear God, every time I'm in a waiting lobby around here, whether it was for my chiropractor, when I was at Safelite to get my windshield replaced, dental place, all sorts of different locations, right? The Talk was playing. So it's just one of those type of in the background, you know, type of shows, and I'm sure there are people that do religiously watch it to actually watch it, but again, it's more for the entertainment value, or to see what's going on and what they're going to be talking about or whatever, or they're just fans of the individual persons that are there. But it's not like people are just like, you know what, this show is teaching me so much and I've learned so much, I'm changing my ways because of The Talk. No. They really think too highly of themselves, and they think too highly of the effect of what this show does.
that we can do it with empathy. And at the same time, I think because of these great divides, things are charged right now. And it's so easy for people to think of things in these black and white, like right and wrong, villain or victim, right? Like there's no, it's just black or white, but racism exists in this gray area. So it's harder to talk about, frankly. Even between friends, there can be these big chasms.
It's even harder with friends.
It's even harder with friends. And so I was hoping to steer the conversation away from a debate about who's racist, who's not, what's racist, what's not, and to talk really about what does it mean to be anti-racist? Because that's a more productive conversation. And I think it gives people actionable solutions and takeaways to be better allies, because that's really what we need more of right now.
And that's
Wow, someone thinks a lot of themselves. Elaine is trying so fucking hard to make herself sound like this elegant, graceful, super intellectual, amazing person. She's trying way too hard to make herself sound like she's a good person. And you know what that means. Anyone who's trying that hard to say, hey, I'm a good person, generally isn't that good of a person. You know, that's just from life experience and common sense, really. It's like saying, it's the common thing of you say something enough times and it becomes a truth, you know, type thing. It's like the person who does something wrong, right? They're gonna repeatedly try to cover it up. Like like for an instance, a child takes cookie out of the cookie jar, and they're gonna be like, nope, that wasn't me, nope, that wasn't me, nope, that wasn't me. And then they're gonna try to maybe do some chores or something to kind of distract them. It's just one of those scenarios where it's overcompensation. Elaine is trying to overcompensate and take advantage of the situation that's now being presented to her to try to promote herself, self-congratulate herself as some sort of like classy, great human being, and she's like laying it on way too fucking thick, fake as fuck. Moving on.
Where we're going to go today, and I'm loving the fact that you brought that up, and it got lost, and so I'm grateful that we're able to share that today. Amanda.
All right, kind of just, I don't know, I'm just feeling, I guess, extra annoyed at everything, so the show is just making me that way, but oh my god, the way that guy is fucking sitting is just so annoying. Why is it all these fucking like tryhards of being like, I don't know, therapeutic intellectuals or whatever, and especially emasculinated, feminized, demasculinated men always sit like fucking girls, you know, like as if they don't have balls. Like I can't even, like this is as far as I can get. Like I cannot squeeze beyond this point without hurting myself because I have balls. So it is beyond my comprehension of how this dude can sit with his legs like a girl sits. Literally the lady legs crossover style. I don't know how the fuck any male can do that unless they literally lack the balls. Oh man. So he forgot to take his balls out of whoever's purse they're in right now, dude. Anyways, this show was making me petty now.
You were here. And you witnessed this volatile conversation unfolding. What was going on with you when you were witnessing that?
Yeah, well, you know, for me personally, you know, just in my life in general, when hard conversations like this come up, I tend to play the mediator therapist role in my family especially, but with friends too. You know, I try to hear everybody's points of view. So that's what I was sitting here and I was really trying to think about how I can get everybody to listen to each other so that we can do what this show does best, to talk and not argue, but to talk and listen and learn.
And so we're seeing the theme here. Each individual is taking the opportunity and this situation to pump themselves up, to make them sound like such a holier-than-thou person and such graceful, such amazing human being, and taking advantage of the situation while throwing, of course, Sharon under the bus, just to promote themselves as such great people and such nice, kind people. Amanda is doing the same as Elaine, you know, more or less doing the same thing. And using this situation as a way to self-promote herself as being a great, amazing person. And by the way, Amanda, you're not special. I take the role of being the moderator, mediator, to listen to everyone's side and try to get people to communicate. There's a lot of people that do that around the world. You're not special. It doesn't make you virtue signally superior than everyone else. I do that same thing. I will be the person that says, all right, let's listen to your view of things. All right, let's listen to your view of things and come to a compromise. It's very common for people to play that role when two other individuals are having some sort of controversy or disagreement or relationship problems or something like that. It's very common, actually, So the fact that you're bringing that up, I get that you're bringing it up for the situation too, but to try to promote yourself as such a great person because you take that role, not so much. It's a very common thing. I do it. A lot of other people do it. You're not special. Congratulations for not being special, I guess. All right. Onward.
And you know, I was listening to you, Elaine, that day, and you were making so many excellent points that just weren't being heard. And so I was sitting here trying to think about what I could contribute, and I was just trying to do that, Dr. Grant. I was trying to think about what I could sit here and contribute to be a mediator and try to get everybody down to a level where we could all listen and talk.
All right, I get what you're doing, Amanda. You're kissing Elaine's ass and everyone else's ass because you want to save your job and save face and so on and so forth. But again, you're laying on the virtue signaling shit a little bit too thick. You're clearly fake as fuck when it comes to what you're going on about. You're trying to promote this idea that you're such a great person because you're trying to take on the mediator role, and you're talking yourself up way too much, just like Elaine did. And it's nothing of actual importance, and you're just ass kissing. You're literally just ass kissing to save your job because you don't want to be the next person out. And being that you are the only white person on there, I can tell that you're being very particularly careful with your words too. Not trying to say too much, not trying to say anything that can be implied to be otherwise. You know, I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing.
But for me, I know over the break, there were a lot of women, not just black women, there were white women saying, one, either that's not me, and then be like, okay, you need to look at, is any part of that you? But then there were women saying, I go through this in other parts of my life where I'm trying to express something and it's not being heard and it's not being digested, and it's almost a feeling of being trapped. You know, and so I wanted to be an example for every woman that might be on a job somewhere and be faced with something like that. But definitely black women who have to manage not just their own expectations and responses, but we have to manage ourselves. And we're a family. And regardless of your background, every day there's some woman going through something like this.
Oh yeah, look at Sheryl making it into the Sheryl show. Oh my god, the amount of gynocentric echo chamber feministic bullshit is just shot up real high there, man. She turned that right into an echo chamber from hell, man. She, you know, turned it from that discussion into catering towards females and trying to make females of color in particular out to be these victims, and that all us white people and or other people that aren't African American are apparently just so oppressive, and therefore making them all such victims, and that they have to hide, you know, this and that. It's like, get over yourself. And then of course she tries to give the idea that, you know, this show again is somehow so culturally important that Sheryl had to put on that whatever act in order to be some sort of influence to help and be whatever towards African American females as some sort of like role model or the other. Talk about thinking too highly, not only of yourself, but of the show. It's like they don't realize that all this show is a CBS daytime talk show. It's fucking fake wrestling is more important than the show. Get over yourself and this show. You're just a bunch of fucking self-centered, self-obsessed, gynocentric, feministic females who have girl talk and make it into a show. It's more or less a YouTube channel. would rather watch cartoons than this show. Cartoons are more important and entertaining than the talk. At least it keeps kids entertained, and it's more important in that way. Like, it actually serves more of a purpose than the talk does, because it keeps kids entertained, and some of it is kind of funny and things of that nature, you know? SpongeBob for days. But you get the idea of what I'm saying here. Literally, cartoons, fake wrestling, way more important than this show. But for some reason, Sheryl is trying to act like every single human being watches the talk, and that somehow she's going to influence some sort of mass cultural change, and that she's going to be some super major help to African American females all around the world because she's so important, and this show is so important. No. Just stop. Stop.
1,000%. And you know what you're describing is what men don't oftentimes get, is this framework where women are subjugated in ways you can't even touch. You can't even name them. Just the fact of you all being in your workplace, right?
Yes.
And having to move into this game face mode and maintain this kind of space. I think about women who don't have the means that you all have, who sit in an office space, and that game face literally is the difference between homelessness and not.
Wow. What a soy boy. Beta male. With no masculinity to him. This is what gynocentrism is making men into. Little pansy ass bitches like this dude. I mean, I get it. You're getting paid probably a lot of money by CBS to agree with everything they say and pander to them in every way possible. But dude, you've lost all credibility. Like, I can't take anything you say seriously, dude. I know he's never gonna watch this, so I shouldn't talk as if I'm directly talking to him, but you get the idea. He's lost all credibility when it comes to anything he says. He's literally just someone who agrees with everybody and then piles on top of it, you know, to kind of like virtue signal on top of their virtue signaling, and then it just compiles from that point. But yeah, he's definitely got his balls in someone's purse. That's for damn sure. But I do want to make a compound point on what he's already stated, and that concerns, in particular, when he stated the whole, people who don't have your position or resources. That comment in particular, which he unknowingly, believe it or not, actually made them all look much, much worse. Because he's right. There are so many people, humans, not just females, or in this case, African American females, who go through this kind of shit on a day-to-day basis. Humans, male, female, of all colors, go through this type of shit, and I'm subjugated to shit that you can't even understand, each to their own type of thing. And they deal with it with much better grace. They don't make it into some shit show sensationalization, over dramatic, melodramatic type of episode, or whatever you want to call it. And they don't have the resources that these overprivileged pansies, gynocentric feministic harpies in their echo chamber have. There are so many females that handle, and humans in general, that handle it way better than Sheryl and Elaine in particular, and then of course better than Carrie Ann and Amanda. The simple fact that he even said that was kind of funny, because it pointed out their overprivilege and how they're doing a worse job than everybody else that isn't overprivileged. He literally made them look bad. I don't know if he was meaning to, he probably didn't, but he unknowingly did that. He's basically saying, look, all y'all are fucking overprivileged, but yet there are all these non-overprivileged people who handle it a hell of a lot better than you guys do, because they don't have a platform and they just kind of, you know, take it on the nose, as it were, and deal with it with much better grace. You know, they're not throwing people under the bus, they're not going on the fucking TV news or even a YouTube channel or anything like that. They just, you know, and move on with their lives kind of situation, because they have a much better discipline, much stronger mentally, mental fortitude wise, emotionally, you name it. They're just that much stronger, better composed, better disciplined, the whole 10 yards, because they're not over privileged, right? So when it comes to these group of harpies, with all their gynocentrism and their, you know, feministic echo chamber bullshit, you know, anything that happens to them is such a big deal to them, because they're overprivileged. They think they're hot shit. So if it happens to them, then it's an injustice to the whole world, right? So they have this type of reaction. They go on fucking TV and dedicate an hour to talking about and making it all about themselves and things like that. And so it's just funny that he literally made them look bad. Funny. Anyway, let's go on.
Right? And so tell us a little bit more about that process. And Elaine, I think I'd like to bring you in on that too, about maintaining that game face, particularly as a woman of color.
Well, you know what was most striking was told, "Don't you cry." Well, I'm not tearing up because you've hurt me or I want some sympathy. I'm tearing up because I have to restrain that. Because if I had responded, then I would have been the angry black woman. And I think I'm talking to my friend, somebody I can trust. And I think that's what resonated with black women out there, but other women, because we're taught, don't express your emotions in a job, don't do anything like that. And we have them, but we have them for a reason.
I love how they're so unaware of just how bad they're making. Sheryl makes herself out to be in this little segment here. Okay, one, you cry over damn near anything. You're an actor in that way. I swear to God, Sheryl is able to make herself cry on cue. Whatever, you know, something comes up, she can make herself cry. She loves to just cry about shit. And I get, you know, it's part of the whole female and estrogen thing and how they're more emotional and things of that nature, but she takes it to a whole new level. Whether it's intentional on purpose or not, that's all based on your assumption, based on my assumption, so on and so forth. But personally, I think she can cry on cue, and she's just a theater actor when it comes to this show, as she's demonstrating in this particular episode, more than anything else, that she's definitely just putting on a show, just like a lot of the other women on that show are. But in particular to this episode, she's really putting on a show. And then of course she brings up the whole angry black woman thing again being racist towards, well, anyone who isn't black. And furthermore, on top of that, she's really making herself look bad, because she's basically saying she has severe anger issues, that she is emotionally undisciplined, because she apparently has to put that game face on, because if she doesn't, she will be an angry black woman. Not the label, not the stereotype, but she will literally herself be this angry individual and lash out or do whatever the fuck she's gonna do. So she's literally like killing her own character here. She's saying that she cannot control her emotions, she's undisciplined emotionally, and that she will act out of anger or vocalize out of anger because she has no control over it. She's an angry person, is what she's more or less saying. She's adhering to that stereotype of angry black woman just by saying that. I mean, Jesus Christ. Get over yourself. All this virtue signaling, she's like wandering off and not understanding that she's making herself look worse. She's making herself look bad. She is saying that she is just fucked emotionally. No discipline and so on. And you're supposed to be someone who served in the military? Anyway, moving on.
So to be told you can't do something, and I'm grown, you know, and you okay, you laugh, see, that's okay. I almost said the words. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You okay? You get that feeling. I'm a grown-ass woman, and then you have to suppress that.
Yeah. Elaine, what was it like for you?
Oh, the overprivilege is strong with that segment. I'm a grown-ass woman. I have to suppress it. I can't express myself. At a job. Well, I'll be damned. You have to be a professional and keep composed and adhere to the job standards that you agreed to by having that job? No. What an injustice. I can't be a spastic while I'm at a job? I can't have a hissy fit, throw myself onto the floor and You're telling me I can't start yelling at people and having a fist fight with my coworkers because I'm upset at work where I'm supposed to be professional? Oh my God. Let's totally riot, because I can't be a spastic at the workplace. I am too good to work at a normal job because of that. Bitch, please. Get over yourself. Welcome to the everyday person life, where we have to stay professional regardless of gender or skin color. There are plenty of people, especially in the customer service department, whether you work at Walmart as a cashier, customer representative, you name it. They have to deal with all kinds of assholes way beyond anything you could ever imagine dealing with. And you know what? They keep a smile on and they keep a happy tone and the whole 10 yards. They're just showing how much better of people they are, regardless of gender or skin color, than one Sheryl Underwood will ever be able to be. Their ability to sustain the shit that comes their way, I give salute to those people, because that is ungodly difficult to do. To just stand there in your whatever uniform, Walmart uniform, or even on the phone as a representative or whatever, and just take the brunt of them screaming, yelling, insulting you. And you just have to stand there and fucking take it, dude. Fast food or otherwise, man, it's all the same. You have to just sit there, stand there, and take it. Listen to them, go on and on, ranting on, being mean to you, for even though it's not anything to do with your fault. That's a special kind of hell to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Anyway, so then we have Sheryl Underwood over here saying that she's above that more or less, and that it's just the little bit of bullshit that she had to deal with apparently with Sharon was just so much. Oh my God, so hard. Get the fuck over yourself. And again, Sheryl is trying to present herself as like the spokeswoman for all African American females out there. Again, get the fuck over yourself.
You sitting up here having to just stay composed, and it was like you were professorial there.
I think when you go back and watch what happened in that episode, you will see two black women walking the same tightrope that Black women are walking every single day in the workplace. As Sheryl said, we knew that we had to stay composed.
Oh, yep, and here we go, Elaine, doing your little circle jerk, or, well, circle fingering, kissing each other's asses. And then we have fucking Sheryl over there trying to push out tears. Literally, she's trying to force herself to cry or have tears, because if you get watery eyes and then you squish your eyes together like that, you know, you push the water that's gained up there and of course naturally come down. And if you watch Sheryl's eyes, you can see that she's doing that, especially if you watch other episodes of the talk. You'll notice that she doesn't have a twitch or an eye problem that makes her do that. She doesn't do that throughout each episode. In particular, for this episode, her eyes are doing that because she's trying to push those tears out of her eyes, or the water that's in them out, to create the illusion of tears and such, for sensationalizing and dramatizing and so on and so forth. So it's pretty interesting to watch these mannerisms and the scripted bullshit and so on and so forth, but little unique body language things like that I'm analyzing, that I'm seeing, is just like, it just adds on to the cringe-worthiness of this. Anyways, let's go on now.
In that situation, even in the face of someone who was A, not listening, and B, who went off the rails into disrespect, when we were maintaining our respect within the context of this very complex, charged, emotional conversation.
Way to talk yourself up, Elaine, like you're God's gift to Earth, and Sheryl too. Holy shit, they are just, for two people who supposedly aren't in this conspiracy and who aren't double teaming and such, they are pretty good at feeding off each other for the double teaming aspect of things. I'll tell you what. Furthermore, adding on to what I was saying before with the eye thing with Sheryl, I also have noticed that throughout this particular episode that Sheryl is confirming with her eyes, she's making sure that the cameras are on her, because for those that don't know, when you're being recorded and such, there are actual panels that are showing who the cameras are focusing on. So she's doing this to look at those particular cameras to make sure that if it is looking at her or focusing on her or not. And so she can stop with the act and the facial expressions and the fake nodding of interest or not. Because if the cameras aren't looking at her, she doesn't have to put on a show. But if they are focusing on her, then she's all like, okay, I gotta put on my act now, and I gotta try to put the tears out, and she's gotta put on that act, that show, kind of thing. So that's another interesting thing that I wanted to point out there.
That was emotional for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important, because Sheryl and I haven't had the same opportunity to address some of what's happened directly. And there have been a lot of false narratives that have been spun in the aftermath of what happened on that episode. And I think it's important that we have the opportunity now, because we were respecting the integrity of an investigation. Right. So this is the first time that I have had the opportunity to speak. And I think it's really important that we have the opportunity to say that the false accusations that are swirling in the press that frame Sheryl and I as some kind of, some people who attacked a woman on air and were part of some sort of,
conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely categorically false.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important that people hear that. Because if you actually watch what happened on that episode, what you will see is two women who were maintaining their composure, their dignity, and a sense of respect every single step of the way, and we were not heard.
Yep.
And I think what's so important for people at home who see themselves in these racial dynamics that we're playing out is that you understand that even if your voice shakes and even if you don't have the perfect words, it's important that you find your voice and that you maintain your integrity and you stand for what you believe in. And even if you are able to find the perfect words, you still might experience attacks.
Yep.
There still might be retaliation. But what I want people at home to know is it's not your fault. All you can control is yourself. And I think that the way Sheryl, both of us, frankly, conducted ourselves that day was respectful. And you were trying to protect your friend in the process of a very hard conversation. And I want people to ask themselves, why would you believe that we were attacking her? There was nothing on my cards that was preparing me. There have been a lot of false narratives that have been spun in the media that frame both Sheryl and myself as co-conspirators in attacking someone. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that that is absolutely, categorically false and unfair.
Holy woman-splaining going on there, Elaine. Wow. And you're trying too hard to sound like this well-educated, intelligent individual. Trying too hard. You're laying it on a little bit thick there. But nonetheless, she's virtue signaling. She's, again, trying to pump herself up as being such a great and kind and good individual and so composed and this and that. It's like, who are you trying to convince? Yourself or us that you're so good and holy and composed and this and that and so on and so forth? Again, over such an insignificant little in-between with Sharon and Sheryl. Like, seriously, get the fuck over yourself. And yet again, throwing Sharon, Jesus Christ, Sharon, say that 10 times real quick. Throwing Sheryl, damn it, I did it again, didn't I? Throwing Sharon under the bus in the process of this whole, woman-splaining spiel of hers. And then, of course, she tried to adhere to her, or cater to the audience of the particular individuals that she was specifically pointing out, and kind of tried to end it on that kind of note, and then tried to give some sort of inspirational, empowering type of finale finish to it all too. And it's like, just stop. It's so obvious what you're doing. Manipulation of emotions and sensationalizing and virtue signaling, kissing Cheryl's ass. I mean, just stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's really powerful and so important for us all to listen to each other's truth. And that's what we're doing, and I appreciate you guys so much. We're going to...
Now, it's very interesting verbiage and terminology that Carrie Ann just used there. She was saying how they're speaking their truths. Notice how she didn't say the truth? Because there's a difference between one's own truth and reality's truth. A universal truth, as it were. Maybe even, to put it scientifically, a peer-reviewed truth. The truth. A unadulterated, unbiased, objective truth. And what they were calling their truths. Because their truth, one's own truth, is subjective, and by its nature can change at any point in time. So what my truth is could be 100% different than your truth. So I want to make that very clear. They by no means and I'll give credit to Carrie Ann there, whether she realized that she said this in that kind of way or not, using the terminology that she did, but she, by saying that, is acknowledging, or unknowingly acknowledging, that what they're saying is their own truth, their own subjective truth, not the truth, not reality truth, but one's own personal truth, which is 100% subjective and to each to their own type of situation. Basically, to put it in a word, opinion. That is their opinion. Not much else than that. So I do want to point that out, and it's just what it is. You know, it's their opinion. It's their truth. And so by stating that, whether she realized she intended to do that or not, she she gave me a perfect opportunity to point this out. And that is literally that you need to understand what these harpies are going on about is not a universal truth. It is not the truth. It is not anything more than just their opinions.
Continue this important conversation with Dr. Grant when we come right back. Welcome back. We've been discussing what happened on the March 10th episode of The Talk with diversity and inclusion expert Dr. Donald Grant.
Well,
That was a misleading intro back. In fact, no, they haven't been talking about the actual incident that occurred on that particular day. In fact, all they've been talking about is their feelings and, you know, what they were thinking. They haven't actually talked about the actual events that transpired. They haven't actually talked about the actual back and forth between. They're just pumping themselves up and being all feely about shit. They haven't actually truly talked about what actually happened yet. Anyway.
we're back. And so, Sheryl, we'll go back to you again. Through this conversation and through some earlier conversations with you, I still feel like there's some pain still there, and rightfully so. Can you share a little bit about how you've been coping over these last few weeks?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm in like PTSD. It's because it was a trauma.
Oh, kill me now. God, I hope I can make it through this. For you two. Gotta do it. Gotta do it. Okay, anyway. Again, to those who actually suffer from real and authentic PTSD, I am sorry you had to read and see that. I am sorry. As I went on before earlier, Sheryl is truly trying to claim that she has fucking PTSD from an exchange between her and Sheryl. And claiming that that exchange was actual trauma. Trauma. Let's look that word up, actually. There are two definitions. A deeply distressing or disturbing experience like the death of a child. Or, definition number 2, physical injury such as a rupture of the diaphragm caused by blunt trauma. And so she is trying to say that she was traumatized to the equivalent, by that definition, to the equivalent of a death of a child. to the point of getting PTSD because of a fucking word exchange that wasn't even that bad between her and fucking Sharon Osbourne. She is trying to say that she was as traumatized as someone who's been shot at war, someone who was suffering from shell shock from war, from someone who's been in a serious, real bad car accident, who is now traumatized and suffers from PTSD because of their accident. She is seriously trying to say that she is on that same level of trauma and to the point of getting PTSD as those people. Death of a child, car accident, war, shell shock, etc. I can't think of anything more disrespectful than that type of shit. Oh my god, I have trauma because I talked to somebody and they disagreed at me and they raised their voice and got angry and upset with me. Now look at me, I'm composing myself. Again, to those who seriously, actually, genuinely suffer from PTSD, trust me, I can understand where you're coming from the rage and the anger that you must be feeling, the total disrespect that you are feeling, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave it at that, and let's continue.
And I feel like I want to get past this because I really wanted to get back to work with my friends and my colleagues and the crew and them grizzly old dudes that been on the lot for 30 years, you know. But I also wanted to get back to the audience. But Elaine, you had mentioned something in the previous break about false narratives, and I want to clear something up. There was a discussion about Sharon and I communicating with each other.
Yeah.
I have not spoken to and do not have any phone call missed or received that I can find in my phone. But there were text messages sent to me. And the reason that I did not speak about or acknowledge or even respond to those text messages because they were coming to me during the internal investigation. And I've never been through anything like this. So I didn't know if you were supposed to communicate or not communicate while there's an internal investigation. So I want to be clear on this. I have not spoken to Sharon. I have not had a phone call from her. And my fear of answering something because something pops up in the media that's misunderstood.
Yeah.
And people have asked me, well, if you see Sharon, what would you do? First of all, if she greeted me warmly and sincerely, I would give her that and the same because we've been on this show together for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So I want people to understand when you friends with somebody, you know, you stay friends. And once they, what Maya Angelou say? When people show you who they are, believe them.
The first
real
time.
talk. Real talk. Real talk.
All right, I'm a fair person. You know, I may highly dislike Sheryl and the talk, but I will give credit where it's due. Even though I'm sure what Sheryl was just going on about was a red herring and bullshit excuse to, you know, excuse her behavior and justify her not responding to Sharon. I can say just from my own personal perspective that if I was in a situation of an internal investigation, that I too would be kind of unsure about what I was able to do, what I'm not able to do, and if I'd get in trouble or not, because you know, the anxiety that goes along with any sort of investigation of that sort, it would get to me too. So I'd be like, can I even? Would I get in trouble? Would that be used against me? You know, things of that nature would be going on in my mind. So I can understand, even if it's red herring, even if it's bullshit, and so on and so forth, I can at least acknowledge and understand if this is authentically the case, understand what Sheryl is going on about, and in that aspect, in that perspective, because to have any investigation done on you is kind of anxiety-wracking and nerve-wracking and things of that nature. So to not want to screw up and get yourself into trouble, I can definitely, I'm with her on that one. Furthermore, being that they are celebrities and so on and so forth, and being that the media is all over this like fucking fat man in a cake, I can also further understand, if this authentically is the case, of what she was saying in regard to the media, you know, spinning it around and making it into something and so on and so forth, because anything that you say, especially if Sharon was to release it, or even if Sheryl herself was to release it, that would just set off more articles, more YouTubers, more, you know, exposés or whatever you want to call them on this situation itself, and possibly bring more negative media attention her way and the Talk's way, CBS's way, etc. So again, I will give credit to that. I'm a fair person like that.
And you know, when we talk about friendship, when we talk about relationships, that makes these things really even more difficult. And we were talking about that at the top. And that longevity and that love doesn't necessarily go away if people are invited to learn and unlearn together,
Right.
and hear one's experience. And that's really important. Speaking of experiences, Elaine, in our conversations leading up to this, you know, it was something really important for you in this conversation related to Meghan Markle and her experience, and that being very dismissed. And I know you wanted to share a little bit about your background and why that was so personal for you. And I think that's really important.
Well, I really think it's bigger than Meghan Markle or Piers Morgan. I really think it's important that we're able to see these pop culture examples, including what happened here on our show, as sort of a mirror that's reflecting back patterns and, you know, troubling experiences and dynamics that play out in everybody's life, in workplaces all over this country and families all over this world. So for me, I think a lot of women see themselves in Meghan Markle and her experience of being silenced and then not being believed when she came forward with her truth.
Totally dismissed.
Totally dismissed.
I believe nothing you say.
And I think
The virtue signaling and woman-splaining never ends with this Elaine chick. Holy shit. God damn. And again, she's trying to not, simultaneously, she's trying to virtue signal and appeal, cater, and emotionally manipulate her situation with trying to relate to other African American females, and females in general, apparently. By saying, you know, she's trying to manipulate their emotions, trying to say, oh yeah, this is relatable to all these other females, when it's not. Elaine is an overprivileged, preppy, you know, liberalistic, whatever the fuck, chick. She's out of touch with the reality with the rest of the other females that she's trying to cater to, trying to manipulate, and so on and so forth too, while virtue signaling in the process of doing so. It's just so fucking annoying. God. Her bullshit act isn't working. I'll just put it that way.
when you deny a woman or woman of color their truth and their experiences, you're not just denying them, you're denying that of every woman and woman of color who sees themselves in this person's story.
Random little thing here, but god damn, Carrie Ann be fine as fuck. She always likes to wear like the porn star fuck me heels, you know, high heels. Like, damn, do you see those arcs? They're just like the top of her foot is this right here, you know, and it's like, holy shit. Fuck me, heels, pumps, whatever. Anyway, that out of the way. Elaine is furthermore going on with the virtue signaling, and she's trying to say that if you silence one, you're silencing all, and again, trying to play the race card and victim mentality card all at once, and she's laying it on super fucking thick. You know, there's a point where, you know, you can lay something on a little bit, right? But just like with anything, if you lay anything on too thick, it's gonna be bad. There is such thing as too much of a good thing, and of course too much of a bad thing, right? You gotta always find that moderation. You gotta find that middle point in everything. And nope, there is. It's not in the middle. It's all the way over there. So yeah, she's making an ass of herself.
I think we also did a disservice to the mental health community because she was speaking about her mental health experience.
That's right.
And it makes it such that some people won't show up for that.
That's right.
That's
Right, Dr. That's right.
All right, well, healing and coming together is something that we all want to work towards. We all don't want to be dismissed. So when we come right back, we're going to ask Dr. Grant to share his perspective on some of the issues that we've been talking about. So don't go away. We're continuing to discuss what happened on the talk a few weeks ago and how it mirrors what's happening in the world today with diversity and inclusion expert Dr. Donald Grant.
So, Dr. Grant, I think one of the things that we've all been reflecting on is that the crux of the misunderstanding that day is that there's this disconnect about what racism even is and how it shows up. I think people think that there has to be tangible evidence or it has to be evil for it to be racist. So can you help reframe that?
That's the danger with some of this work is that when you think about racism, people think about the KKK and all those pieces and swastikas, but we know that not everything looks like that. You can't see it that way every time because everybody disagrees with, for the most part, disagrees with the KKK and those blatant acts. It makes it seem like racism is not existent because we all say no to that. But what about the fact that 75% of children's books are published have white leading characters and 23% are for the rest of all children of color?
What a terrible argument. He had it going good, pretty good for a while there, up until that last little bit that you saw there. The characters in a book or a movie or a this or a that is not racism. That is personal preference that has nothing to do with racism. And if it does, well, that's just shitty. But a majority of the people aren't even thinking about racism. They're not intending to even be racist or anything of that sort. African Americans are not entitled, just like anybody else, to have their skin color or their likeness presented on a book character or a movie character or any character of anything just because they're the least used or whatever, the lower percentile in character demographics or whatever. That is just such a terrible, fallacious argument or statement to use. Like, okay, does that mean I am entitled to be a movie character or a book character? Because you know what, I've never been used or the main star in a movie or in a book before. So you know what that means? That means I am entitled to be the main star in a movie or the main leading character in a book. Because percentile-wise, I'm even lower than African American people. I'm lower than everybody. Because at least in, movies and books and such, at least they get to be in that role at all. But me, never, ever have I... See, this is basically the argument that he's using, but on the scale of percentiles of white versus black, and being in the lead role or lead character in books and such. It's terrible argument, isn't it? He really did have something good going on there at a principle standpoint, up until he made that dumbass comment. But again, he's catering to these gynocentric females, and you know, they're trying to be overly PC, so whatever. Anyway.
When we look at racism and we understand the fact that we just can't see it and touch it, how many of us move through the world as people of color combating the white superiority model, and we have to work to dismantle that. So racism is not just these tangible acts, it's a system. It's the air we breathe.
And it's much more subtle.
Yeah.
Way more
Right?
so.
I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is it's much more subtle.
Yeah.
Oh God, the stupid whole microaggression subtle bullshit that they're getting at. Because again, these are very democratic, liberal, left-leaning type individuals. Obviously, they're on fucking CBS, so what do you expect? So now they're getting into the territory of microaggressions and this white superiority bullshit. You know, saying it's so subtle and so this and so, and as if we're all intending on being racist towards African Americans, whether it's on a microaggressive level, a subtle level, or just outright, you know, blatantly kind of thing. And they couldn't be any more wrong. This is just the victim mentality. This is propaganda that's said over and over and over again until it becomes a truth, until people will believe that this is actually a thing. Because I can definitely say that if I'm thinking of a lead character, if I'm thinking of anything of that sort, I'm not thinking about skin color. I'm not thinking about anything of that sort. So if I choose a white person, a black person, a Latino, or someone from Siberia as a Russian, albino or otherwise, I'm thinking just based off of my personal preferences. And if it happens to be a white person, it's not because I'm racist, it's not because I'm intending to be racist, it's not because I'm subtly intending on being racist, or anything in that area at all. It's because that is who I chose to be the character in my book, in my movie. The Latino or the Siberian Russian is no more or less entitled to be the main character in my book or movie as is the African American. Plain and simple as that. Has nothing to do with racism or you being a victim to society, and has everything to do with personal preference based off of what I want because it's my project. There's no microaggressions, there's no subtleties, nothing of the sort. Stop it with trying to act like you're still suppressed like you were way back in the 1950s and before. You're not suppressed, you're not oppressed, you're not a victim. Knock it off.
Covert. It's covert.
Dr. Grant, something that Elaine was trying to bring up that day, which I think is very important to talk about today, is the concept of anti-racism. Can you explain that a little bit further and the importance of it?
Yeah, it feeds into the earlier question. When we talk about not being racist, we're talking about a passive thing. Anti-racism requires action. It requires us to look around and say, no, I am not actively hurting people by my racist actions, but perhaps I'm participating in a system that creates harm for people of color, creates harm based on race, doesn't allow all children to get the best education they can, and being anti-racist is our actions taken to remedy the system, even if you feel that you're not participating in it actively.
I love that. I love when
Oh my God, they are really trying to push this agenda that you have to literally give African Americans or anyone else of different skin color that, basically isn't white, positions, jobs, education, this and that, just off the basis that they aren't white. They're literally trying to propagate this idea that people that aren't white are entitled to job positions, education, schooling, this, that, just because, and only because they are of a different skin color, because they are not white. And, he's trying to make the argument, and of course they're agreeing with him, that even if you aren't hurting anyone with the non-participation in racism, that you should still be anti-racist and give these people these jobs and these positions and these so on and so forth, because they're entitled to it, and it will help you and PC culture not be racist. There's this old saying that if you aren't hurting anybody, you're not killing anybody, then that's not a problem. Well, he's saying, even if you aren't killing anyone, even if you aren't hurting anyone, it's still a problem. You're still not doing good enough. He's trying to guilt trip us into giving these people positions and this and that they don't truly deserve or earn. Much like Kamala Harris. She didn't get that vice president job because she earned it. No, she got it because she has a vagina and she's a woman of color. Literally. That was the specifications that he was looking for. Has to be a female. And brownie points if she was a female of color. That's why she is a vice president. That's the kind of shit this guy is trying to exacerbate on a global level, on everything. Not just that vice president. No, CEO, school, private school, this, that, on an everywhere level. Basically saying, if they're someone of color, if there's someone who has a vagina, well, give them this spot because they have a vagina and or because they're a person of color. Now, more and more, I'm understanding the Republican saying of that quote of liberalism is mental illness and cancerous and all that. I am understanding that more and more. I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I'm not liberal. I don't have any association with any of them. But I am saying that I understand what Republicans are saying when they are talking about liberalism being a mental illness and disease and such. Wow.
you can make a statement, but it has action behind it so that there's a forward movement.
And that's the movement behind anti-racism. It's forward motion, action.
That's what I'm talking about, action.
We have to move.
All right, when we come back, Dr. Grant will share some of the tools everyone can use to have these difficult conversations in their own lives.
And that was literally all that I could bear to watch. And I am impressed with myself that I was able to make it through it yet again. For you guys. Anyway. Wow. Like, You know, they're always going on about this progressive moving forward thinking or style or whatever. But in reality, they are trying to suppress, censor, and dictate what can be said and what can't be said into this overly amped up, how should I put it? Orwellian type of world, not from the book 1984. Type of world on steroids. Like, you have to be in their liberal little delusional world of safe spaces, cancel culture, PC politically correct type of speech and thought and so on and so forth. Otherwise, they cancel you, they kill you. It's just like the super dictatorship. Whether it's either you agree with them or you are wrong. You are dead wrong. You have to be this mamsy-pamsy bullshit person, otherwise you're not moving forward. In fact, they are trying to bring us back in the days and age where it was kings and queens, but in this, style of thinking and what they're trying to propagate is you have to be all fucking liberal, and if, they control, they are the king, they are the queen, and you have to adhere by the king and the queen's way, otherwise you're executed. And basically that's what this style of groupthink and echo chamber type of horseshit that they're exacerbating is trying to basically do, is trying to bring us back to those days. Because they're so self-righteous in their superiority complexes and narcissism and egocentrism that they are literally trying to be like that to a certain level and be complete dictators over what you can say and cannot say, what you can and cannot do. They're control freaks, really. They want to control every single aspect of your life. What you think, what you see, what you hear, what you do, what you say, everything about you, every ounce of your being, they want to control. They are control freaks on a whole new level. And this basically shows it. Of course, this is just a small example, obviously, and I'm not trying to be too political with this, but they really do give the idea to me that liberalism is truly mental illness, that they're fucked in the head because of their left-wing thinking, and I get they're just extremists and so on and so forth, but it's really fucked up the way that these people actually think and how they want to be overly politically correct and how they're always virtue signaling and how fake they are. It's like they don't want people to be genuinely who they are, and they don't believe in free speech. And if someone does, such as Sheryl, then they're going to backstab and pull all sorts of shit like they did on that March 10th episode. And then after she respectively pulls out and doesn't want to be a part of the show anymore, then they dedicate 1 hour of throwing her under the fucking bus. It's like, that was totally uncalled for. I couldn't even make it through that entire episode. That was as far as I could get. Because one thing that kept bugging me through the entire thing is Sharon wasn't there in any capacity, whether it was video conference or in person, to fucking defend herself. And I get that, it's generally a court of law that this only applies to, but you need to be able to face your accusers. You need to be able to defend yourself against the accusations that are being thrown towards you in this type of scenario, especially when it's put on public cable TV, where anybody can just tune on in who has access to TV, right? So especially when it's on that level, those type of ground of level, it's even more important that Sharon should be able to defend herself against Sheryl. And it just kept bugging me because, I'm sure that if Sharon was there to defend herself, she would have been able to, fight back and, speak out against the bullshit that they're propagating on this goddamn hour of horseshit. And just constant virtue signaling, and call Sheryl out, or call Carrie Ann out, or call Elaine out, and Amanda as well, and just properly be able to defend herself against all the slander and character defaming, and I just feel bad for Sharon, really. She deserves way better than this. And to see all these people backstab her and CBS betray Sharon in the way that they have is just shitty, and shows just how liberal Democrats and this echo chamber of toxic femininity can just implode on itself. With their own thinking, their own style, their own everything, it literally implodes on itself. It doesn't stand as a solid foundation. You could be the most influential person and the best, most well-respected, liberal, democratic, virtue signaling sumbitch, but you make one little mistake, instantaneously, and there you go. They will fuck you over like that of 1,000 suns, man. So, basically, I see this as just CBS trying to save face, damage, control type of situation. Unfortunately, Sharon wasn't there to defend herself, so they just went in on her more or less and tried to use that opportunity to make themselves look better than her and make themselves sound like they're such great people, way better than her. It's overall just a shit show and virtue signaling fuckfest and fake as fuck, totally scripted. The energy was just lackluster at best. They were being careful with what they were saying because they didn't want to be next on the chopping board, per se. And ultimately, I wouldn't even take anything of what they said seriously. It was all just a show, a facade, fake. It wasn't at all anything that was serious or genuine or sincere. It was just another show that was literally a show. Like they were all putting on a show, an act. It was nothing more, nothing less. And it's unfortunate because it's at the expense of Sharon Osbourne. And I guess it is what it is. But nonetheless, that is all I have to say about this on this particular topic. So, until next time.